A lot of us are trying to imagine the new world so that we can we're learning about manifestation, but we can't actually imagine what it's going to be like. You know, we talk about ascension and we talk about how things are going to change in 5D, and I think that that's kind of like the seed, like Jane coming to bringing this video together allows us together to kind of like in group consciousness start to basically imagine the new world coming forward so that we can actually bring it a little sooner than later.
Then would you go as far as to say that duality was sent here almost as a gift for us so that we could evolve to the extent, the maximum extent that we possibly could from experiencing that duality?
In the tapestry of life, nothing is an accident. Things manifest because of the energetic sequence of events. And so I would say you're quite right. This was a duality part of, perhaps you might call it the source code or the source program. And through it, not only have we managed to navigate and learn more about ourselves, but so too has source, because through us, source knows more about itself. We have been entrained to forget our true identity. We simply have forgotten our divine nature. Black's Law dictionary actually has the description of human being. And in it, in the 4th edition, it actually says that a human being is a monster. We have to try in as much as we can to recognize that we are more than we have ever been told.
So today here we have the wonderful Dave Emery, who walks around with 1 million tetrabytes of information in his head and can dispense from it at the push of a button. He's amazing, and I've enjoyed getting to know him, and we've shared a lot of our thoughts and ideas over time. So we decided to get together and collaborate on some stuff, and especially today for futuring the new Earth. And then we have Virginia, who is going to moderate. She's familiar with all of our work, and we gladly and happily welcome her to moderate the show today. So thank you for being here, both of you.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
I'm going to share a video with you that I wrote, and it's going to be the topic of conversation going forward in this video. Futuring the new Earth. The emphasis is on ring here. The ring is the resonance we are building up to. One unified angelic song of creation, which manifests our future, the new Earth. Now that enough of us have remembered how to tap into cosmic wisdom, we are moving into action mode as the shackles of the old world fall away like autumn leaves. Humanity is receiving messages from newly aligned celestial arrangements about our true purpose, where every single soul receives their unique mission to contribute to the whole. Our creation currency is kicking in as never before, while new and ancient tools, organic technologies, and harmonic modes of being come online. Futuring is a verb that lives in the now, yet embodies actions that will affect our future for thousands of years to come. Those who know are setting the table for the ultimate feast of abundance, where everyone has the chance to fulfill a meaningful life and purpose. There is no more gluttony and service to self. There are no idols at the head of the table to foment scarcity, poverty, disease, and addiction. There are no sentinels to banish the undeserved. The insanity of the acceptance of war and bloodletting is banished from the realm, the emphasis being moved wholly away from destruction toward creation. In this reinvented realm of harmonic resonance, the future rings bright for all the children of the divine Creator, and innocence is as revered as the original sacred blueprint of life, now honored. The psychological dystopia of the fear of death no longer foments the need for people to grovel before towers of statutory paperwork dealt out by experts of dark diction administering spells laced with legal arsenic. Many divine souls are realizing the old limitations of the alphabet of existence and moving beyond the babble of these spells. We are developing a whole new language of communication befitting higher dimensions than the one that has petrified us. Operating at any level, at the behest of a system that controls and imprisons, is no longer physically, psychically, or spiritually possible. In this new world we are manifesting, there are no soulless AI data thieves to steal the seat of humanity's natural creative genius. The endless treadmill and pursuit of the material is vanquished and replaced with an organic spiritual mode of existence that is no longer pierced by subliminal, external, and superficially inseminated wants. With the release now of long-hidden, etherically secret technologies, there are no looming bills, demands, foreclosures, repossessing of vehicles, SWAT teams to shake the foundation and peace of the shelters wherein our families reside. With the severing of the arms of the media circus octopus, we see examples of positive change reported in the world around us and are inspired to participate with gusto. All psychological propaganda dies at the doorstep of the now discerning, fully awakened, earth-being populace. The temptation to murder, cheat, steal, lie, and live a life of bizarre desires born of dysfunctional and unstable upbringings and CIA programs will vanish as the harmonics of joy and oneness infiltrate the ether with stories of our positive conscious evolution and truths of such magnitude that we are immediately enlightened upon hearing them. Governments and institutions that perpetuated corruption and distortions out into the field will cease to exist as human autonomy grows, thereby overriding the now glaringly obvious mechanisms of control and limitation that once monitored our every move. Our previously confined lives, riddled with borders, passports, roadblocks, and cordoned natural areas, will dissolve as we begin to levitate above all the walls and fences constructed by an invading species that feared our freedom and divinity more than the devil himself. As the veil lifts to reveal all, we will recognize the death cult trinity of Satan operating in our midst. We will ask, is that our true Father? And where is our Divine Mother? She seems to have been missing for eons. Then, when the Mother returns in all her wisdom, she will fill that long-lost void of glaringly absent love and nurturing, and where we had perpetually stuffed our false-like superficial desires of immediate gratification into this void, we now have no need to do so. We shall have all the nourishment of our minds, hearts, and bodies ever needed, so freeing us to be fully realized as the divine beings that we truly are. Before us shall we witness, as one, the shift into the new earth, and we will be ready. So let's just open up the conversation about futuring the new earth. Dave, what do you have to say?
It's a tour de force, my dear. Thank you very much for letting me see that. I loved it. I mean, I couldn't think of anything that you missed out. Nothing. It was just perfect. It was wonderful. And I was nodding in agreement. I was smiling with the pictures you showed. It's just an affirmation of exactly what we've both been talking about, and how our world and our earth is going to change. So it's you covered all the bases there, Jane Evershed. It was brilliant.
Well, thank you, Dave. Well, let's end this video right here then. Bye, Virginia. Okay, so we saw in there the flower of life, which we're going to expound upon a little bit later in the show. But what I really wanted to get at right off the bat was the on the ground healing that can begin right now. You know, what is solid, because it just looks like there's so much to counter and change that people become overwhelmed. And we got to get this ball rolling. We can't stay in a waiting mode. We've got to activate this paradigm shift and bring up the resonance, because we know that all darkness dies in the light. So those are things I can think of just, off the top of my head. But I wonder if you have any contributions.
Well, I think just the same as you. It starts with every single individual. The key to all of this, everything that we've been talking about, and everything that you've so creatively shared here, is to do with identity. It is who we are. And this, of course, this great forgetting over so long a period of time, the forgetting of who we really are, of not any longer being aware of our genuine identity, is the issue behind all of everything that was put into that excellent video there by you, Jane. So, I mean, the thing is that we simply have forgotten our divine nature. And it hasn't happened by accident. There have been many situations which we have not been aware of, but everything that has taken place has not been by accident. There have been alternative forces at work which have definitely endeavored to shape this forgetfulness. You only have to consider the birth certificate. And I noticed Black's Law Dictionary was in there. Well, the fourth edition of Black's Law Dictionary actually has the description of human being. And in it, in the fourth edition, it actually says that a human being is a monster. So right there in a dictionary, you have definite direct evidence that we have been entrained to forget our true identity, that in fact we are monsters. Now, this is coming from a legal dictionary created by authoritarian groups all around the world. So when I say about we have forgotten, we have been helped to forget who we are. So Jane, to come back to your very, very vital and pivotal question, where do we start? We start right here in the Azure, in the heart chakra, just above the heart chakra, because this is the God seed atom. This is what we really are. We are God seeds. And that is our identity. So we start with ourselves. We have to try as much as we can to recognize that we are more than we have ever been told, that we are more even than we feel at our best times. We are greater than all of that. In fact, your video, Jane, shows all of the aspects of the beautiful, celestial, divine aspect of truth that we truly are. And we start with ourselves right here in the God seed atom, the azure, to begin that spark of remembering who we are.
Okay, now I'm going to go back to boots on the ground again, because I'm a big believer in that. So when we say that we have to start, it begins with our ability to create and manifest. Wouldn't you agree with that? And
Yeah, sure.
the thing that we've had rinsed out of us is the fact that we are creative and that we have creative currency running through us. And we've had those creative neurons, they poured water all over them and totally put them out in all of our educations. And we were never told that we were natural manifestors. And in fact, we were told we were sinners and we must humble ourselves before the Lord. So if you throw all that out, the main thing is when you're starting, it's your first step out into changing the entire planet. Okay. So the very, very, very first thing that you're going to do is you're going to maintain positivity in order to create harmony within your immediate realm. And because we have such a big aura that goes out into the field around us, and people can feel and hear it. Very much like the Vedic codes that you show us, Dave.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying, and the point you made about that we're connected with everything. Our creativity comes from deep within, and it's within everything. I personally find that that this sense of oneness, this sense of unity with everything, is really a primary stepping stone into what you have been advocating, boots on the ground, making something happen in a physical sensory situation. I feel that a primary aspect of that is to feel that we are one. Of course, we are love, and that's important. It's vital, absolute love. And we are a sense of joy, which is connected to our creative natures. But it's also the fact that we are unity, we are one together, because when we feel that, then we also have the opportunity to express ourselves together as one. And this amplifies everything that we are creating, that we're manifesting in absolute love. So, yeah, slowly but surely we're getting to the places that we need to be able to manifest everything that you have been saying here.
You know, the first time that I ever chanced upon the notion of oneness, I would say something to the effect of, I am one with everything and everyone except George Bush. So how do you get past that kind of a barrier, where people look around them, they see criminals, they see pedophiles, rapists, and they go, how am I supposed to become one with that? How do you address that part?
Well, what a great question. And it's such a fundamental one. It really does point to the human condition as we experience it here in the world. Really wise people would point and say, well, in fact, everything is source. Everything belongs to source. Everything comes from source. Everything is as creative and as loving as source. And we throw our hands up in horror when we consider George Bush or anybody who doesn't appear to follow those particular rules. How can you possibly love somebody who does this? How can you love somebody who does that? I remember when I was at school, when I was teaching, in my first year, I had a lot of experiences in teaching in that first year, and it was very difficult. And I remember there was one boy I really, well, most of the children I've taught, etc., I've loved them. But there was one who I really had an exception to. I'd kept him behind after school. He was 13, a morose individual. He had nothing good to say, even about himself. I was ignorant. I didn't know about these things back then. And I told him after school just to stack the dictionaries up from the desks, a little punishment. And his response to stacking the dictionaries was at the back of the classroom, he would pick a dictionary up and he would throw it towards the library across the classroom. And of course, this incensed me. I went absolutely ballistic. I won't say what I wanted to do to him, because it's hate speech. So I was afterwards in the staff room, and I asked a senior member of staff. It was a lady. She was a very, very sensitive lady. And I told her about this boy who just throws dictionaries across the room. And I said, I wanted to wring his neck. And she said, well, who do you really hate? Do you hate the person who's doing it? Or do you hate the behavior that he expressed? And I thought about that. Well, I don't like the behavior. She said, well, it's the behavior that you really hate. The person you may not hate, because the behavior masks the real person within. Now, I know I'm taking a bit of a stretch here when we're considering some of the horrendous things that have been done by individual people throughout history, throughout our time. Some we have actually met, and some we have never met, but we've read about. They've done horrible things. Is it their behavior? And are they okay inside? And is it the behavior that we must object to? It's a very difficult question for all of us, and we all must face it. My answer to this is that if we are all of source, and I believe we are, if everything comes from source, everything is created by source, and is based on absolute love and joy and unity, then it is the behaviors that we are really stacking up against. And we must be looking at how to help people moderate their behavior so that it becomes in alignment with the sensitive, loving nature of source itself. Don't ask me how I do that, because when I was a teacher with this boy in the classroom, I could not figure it out. I just say it as a philosophical point of view in answer to what you just said.
Okay, well, I would respond with that by saying that if all of this stuff does indeed come from source, then would you go as far as to say that duality was sent here almost as a gift for us so that we could evolve to the extent, the maximum extent that we possibly could from experiencing that duality?
You're a very clever lady, Jane Evershed, because that is a very profound question. And after examining it for some time, I would have to say, yes. You could say that it is part of the program. It was never intended from our point of view. When you and I and Virginia and we all sat together as angelic indigos in that astonishingly wonderful, very high ceilinged, blue lit room, which echoed with the marble footfalls there was thousands of us there in our shimmering gold and white radiance. And we were listening to the opportunities that were given to us to come to Earth. And I remember looking at you on one side of me and saying, yeah, let's go down there, Jane. How hard can it be? and I think in a few lifetimes later, you actually slapped me and said, this is how hard it can be. It can be very hard. You see? Because when I came down here in my ignorance as an angelic indigo, I really had a mission of guardianship, healership, protectorship, and love. And that is who I was, that is who I am. And I knew it. But of course, over many, many lifetimes, thousands and thousands of lifetimes, you forget. And what creeps in is the opposite of unity, and that is duality. And there are no accidents in the tapestry of life. Nothing is an accident. Things manifest because of the energetic sequence of events. And so I would say you're quite right. This was a duality part of, perhaps you might call it the source code or the source program. And through it, not only have we managed to navigate and learn more about ourselves, but so too has Source, because through us, Source knows more about itself.
Now, to that, I would say, since we've lived all these thousands and thousands of years and keep incarnating, would it be true to say that we sometimes incarnated as a draconian, reptilian, Khazarian, whatever, off-world invader of our planet in order to understand them and exist in that capacity so that when we did come back, we would fully understand what we were dealing with? Or would that be a stretch?
Well, according to my information, that's a stretch. Source downloads, according to my information, Source downloads itself perpetually in streams of consciousness, streams of pure consciousness, and the streams of consciousness, which are happening all over the cosmere, everywhere, in every moment, are manifested as 24 God seeds. 24 God seeds, and each time. So they're happening all the time. So we had a 24 God seed consciousness stream, which downloaded into to create our time matrix. It's a complex process, so I won't go through it all. But basically, there are 24 God seed lines, species lines. And one of them was the, we could call it the angelic humanoid line. Then there was the reptilian line, there was the cetacean line, and so on. Lots of different lines, and they're all from God. They're all from God's seed, and they have the God seed stream of consciousness within them. And they download, etc., their species line into the time matrix so that they can experience life in all the wonderful tapestry that they can. However, there is no inter-reaction between them. In other words, you're not going to be reborn as a draconian or even as an Anunnaki, because those lines are separate. They're already set. However, the Melchizedek Godseed line, of which we are a part, the Melchizedek Godseed line, the humanoid line, is the one line in our time matrix which has not been wholly corrupted. And it is the one line, curiously, into which every other species may incarnate so that they can receive their codes back. They can get their codes back if they can incarnate into our Melchizedek humanoid Godseed angelic human line. And many of them do. Would you like an example of someone? Okay, I won't name names, but I'll give you an example. You quite often find human beings who can do astonishing things that ordinary human beings really couldn't even imagine. How about this one? A lady is a scientist. She works in another country. She's around 40 years of age. She's a free diver, which means she dives without oxygen. And she can hold her breath for 10 or 12 minutes underwater. But not only that, she dives naked in Arctic waters, which are almost freezing, swimming for 10 to 12 minutes with beluga whales. Now, why does a scientist do that? Because they're investigating and checking on the species of the beluga whale. And the way in which she can get them to fraternize with her is to dive with them, swim for 12 minutes in ice cold waters and be as one with them. Now, that is extraordinary. However, it's an example of someone who of a species, a cetacean Godseed line, which manifests, incarnates into the Melchizedek human line to pick up the codes. And that's why she is sharing the codes with the beluga whales. Now, there are many cases of humans who have this astonishing connection with another species line. I'll give you one other example. Is a lady who I believe lives in Idaho. She's in her 50s. She lives alone in an ordinary house, which is in a wood. It's on the edge of a town, quite some way away, but it's in a wood. And it is surrounded by populations of black bears. And the black bear mothers come down, 3 or 4 of them, maybe 5, with their children, with their babies. And they play around her house. and she talks with them. She doesn't let them into the house. She says, don't come in. And so they stay very respectfully outside. One of them even shuts her door for her when it's open. And the bears go off to forage and leave their children in her care around the house and then come back many hours later. She often says, don't do this at home, because this is not what you could do. And the reason? Because she carries the codes of that particular species line inside her energetic field. And they know that. They know that she is one of them. She doesn't look the same, but she's one of them. And this is an example of someone else who is actually from another species line, but incarnated as a human. I mean, genuinely a human, but nevertheless is carrying the codes for another species line. So what am I trying to say? I'm saying that by and large, no, you don't incarnate as a draconian or as a zeta. That's not going to happen. But there is a facility through our Melchizedek Godseed line for other species lines who have lost their codes to recover them. And that is an example. That's not an accident. That's an example of the source code program activating out of love and unity consciousness for all beings.
Well, I have just one more question about unity consciousness, and that is, can unity consciousness exist within a hierarchical structure?
On Earth, probably not. I don't really see much evidence of it down here. I could be wrong, and I hope I could be forgiven for that. But generally speaking, a hierarchical structure, as we have had, for example, royalty, monarchy, etc., etc., they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. I mean, they say, "Well, we are for the people," and "Hello there, people. We're here for you." But we know that they don't mean it. You know, it's nice to be able to talk it, but they don't walk it. So my inclination is that it is very. It's like Jeshua Sananda Melchizedek is alleged to have said. Jesus is alleged to have said, it is more difficult for a man to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. So for a rich man to truly enter the kingdom of heaven, he has to be truly at one with unity consciousness. I think it is very, very difficult for people who walk red carpets and step into limousines all the time. And not there's anything wrong with the limousines, because I like cars, by the way.
Okay, so I thought at this point you're good at doing an overview, Virginia. Do you have any suggestions for the direction we should be going in right now?
I think, working with you on the video, I'm just thinking about how, many of us over the last, like I just woke up really in the last 4 years, and we're watching a lot of the present situation unfold, and we're in kind of a waiting mode. And I thought it was really wonderful when Jane kind of got the download, or basically created that narration, because I think that a lot of us are trying to imagine the new world so that we can we're learning about manifestation, but we can't actually imagine what it's going to be like. We talk about ascension, and we talk about how things are going to change in 5D, and I think that that's kind of like the seed, like Jane coming to bringing this video together allows us together to kind of like in group consciousness start to basically imagine the new world coming forward, so that we can actually bring it a little sooner than later. I guess is what I'm really anxious to hear us talk about, because I was thinking about those things, and then when Jane read that to me, I was like, that's it. I haven't even been able to articulate that question until she brought it forward. So I'd just like to hear us talk a little bit more about that process, if you're aware of, or you have an idea of what that process would be.
Well, let me address that quickly, and then I'll open it up to Dave. Okay. The thing I see in my mind as we're going forward, and it's happening all the time, the ascension process is ongoing, right? And it starts with someone stepping outside of the matrix and turning around and saying, I'm just not going to put up with this shit anymore. And they find a way to exist, and they find a way to tap into cosmic wisdom, and they find a way for the universe to support them in some magical way. They suddenly find they have everything they need, and their friends start looking at them and they go, what you doing? You left your bloody job. What do you think you're doing? And all this stuff. And then they go, yes, I've stepped outside of the matrix. Look at me, watch me run. And then they pull it off. People can pull it off. And then they all go, well, mate, you see him, see what he did? Oh my God, I'm gonna try that. And then off they go, and each one of them has 5 friends, and then those 5 friends have 5 friends, and pretty soon you've got like a freedom revolution moving towards ascension, basically, and people realizing after they've spent more time in nature and away from all this cubicle life of blocks, they start grounding, they get connected to the earth again, they start connecting to the cosmos again, they get the wisdom downloads, and they start moving in that direction. And I think that is what it's going to take. Again, boots on the ground.
What it feels like.
Well, I thought both of you spoke very eloquently there. Yeah, Virginia, I get what you're saying, and I can feel the resonance of your honesty about how you feel and where you've come from, and how quickly you've expanded your own personal consciousness. And the questions you asked there were absolutely right on point. So I respect that totally. And of course, Jane, thank you for your inimitable display of passion there for the answer. I loved it. I get that totally, what you say, and I think it will manifest, and it is manifesting in exactly the ways you were just saying. You know, what is it? This called the 100th monkey effect. Eventually, you know, it just spreads, and you never know why. Can I give you an example, a little story from my own life?
Please.
You have to wake up personally, and you can't get anybody else to wake up for them. They can only do it themselves. So it is by example. And I remember 22 years ago. Yeah. 22 years ago, I was trying to recover from the loss of my business and the destruction of my 3D life. You know, lost my house and everything. It all went. And I decided that what I would do is I would find out why is that the banks, this is particularly, why is that the banks had been demanding like snakes all of everything without stopping. You know, it's just non-stop demand, 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 payback, payback. And I'd already been into court 2 or 3 times. It was a nightmare. So I decided that was a good learning curve for me, because this is where I began to wake up to my own condition. And I decided that I'd investigate as much as I could about the banks and how they made their money. Well, what a rabbit hole that was. I'm going to fast forward now, because to cut a long story short, I went to London on a course for 5 days to learn all about the strange machination that the banks could have control over everything in the world, which I realized they did. And I learned all sorts of things, you know, like the birth certificate fraud, about this, that, and the other thing, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end, I paid a lot of money for this, by the way. And at the end, the organizers gave us an exam. Now, this is very interesting. They gave us an examination, and we sat there on the Friday morning with our examination papers. And they were real examination papers. And at the top of the examination paper, this was to see if we had passed and we knew everything that they had been telling us and how to conduct ourselves to be free. So at the top of this paper, which was official, there were lots of boxes. And you've seen them before. Name box, address box, date of birth box. You know what I mean? Can you fill on these things in, please, first, before you start answering the questions, please? And so what did Dave Emery do? Dave Emery filled in all of those details inside the boxes. And then I answered the questions, and I think I got almost all of them right. I knew I did. And that afternoon, we were given the results. And Dave Emery was one of 3 people who failed. I failed? Now, hang on a minute. I know I got those questions right. And when I questioned, there was about 40 guys. They're all guys in there, 40 guys. I put my hand, I said, look, how come I failed? He said, well, Mr. Emery, you failed at the very, very beginning. I said, why? Because you followed the rules and you put your name, date of birth, address, everything inside the boxes, and you didn't write outside the boxes. And the question is, Mr. Emery, do you know who you are? Do you get what I'm trying to say here? I was following the rules of the 3D world. You must write inside the boxes. Don't color outside the lines. You know, follow the rules, follow the regulations, follow the script, and then you will be who we think you are and not who you are. So I point that out to you as an example of how I suddenly started to wake up. Oh my God, yes, I'm source. I don't have to write inside the boxes. What am I thinking? And so you're quite right. It begins with one person. One person spreads the word, and eventually all the monkeys on all of the islands and all of the planets have picked up exactly what to do.
Yep.
I hope that was okay.
Oh, good.
No, I love that story. I'd like to address the fact that lately I've been watching a lot of very popular people talking about sacred geometry. And there's some questions that are popping up in my mind because I'm seeing some confusion around the flower of life. Listen to Robert Grant and Billy Carson, Terrence Howard, and they seem to be missing the flower of life boat somehow. And, you know, they're all outstanding contributors to this great awakening. So I just want to know how to get past this, this Metatronics part, you know, how they get that wrong. Because we know one is Metatronic death symbol and the other one is the true eternal flower of life that always gives and gives and gives. And the other flower of life, the flat one, and I want to know why they're getting it wrong. Is it intentional? Is it controlled opposition? Or is it just for lack of knowledge that this information hasn't gotten out there as far and wide as we would like to see it get out there?
Do you want me to answer that?
I would love you to answer that.
Okay. Well, yeah, I agree with you. Some of these contributors are just amazing speakers, so eloquent and just wonderful. Terrence Howard, I've listened to his videos, and you've got to love most of these guys because, you know, they're angelic humans. Now, you might say to yourself, well, you know, if they're angelic humans and indigos, etc., how come they sort of made a mistake about the Metatronic symbol codes, etc., etc.? Well, you know, it's very easy to make errors like that. I remember in, when was it? It must have been 2005. I went to Spain, to Barcelona. And the person I was with said, oh, you've got to come and see the Gaudi Cathedral, which is a tour de force in architectural technology. And it's all based on the flower of life. And in 2004-05, I didn't know hardly anything about the flower of life, but I did know about, it's based on the Fibonacci spiral because it was all written down there as you walked around. This is the Fibonacci spiral, and I didn't know what that meant, but it looked beautiful. So I was captivated, and everybody around me was saying, isn't it beautiful? So I said, yeah, it's beautiful. And this is the Fibonacci spiral, isn't it good? And I said, yeah, this is the Fibonacci spiral, and it's good, yeah. And this is all great, yeah, yeah. So I was an angelic indigo, but you see, I got sucked along with the rest of the people. And this is what happens. I mean, that video with Terrence Howard about the periodic table, when he comes to the flower of life, of course, he mentions that the emerald tablets of Thoth. Well, the fact is that what has happened, he has not been he's not found his own education, because he is just simply repeating what people have said throughout history for 1,000 years: the Sumerian texts, emerald tablets of Thoth, the golden mean, the Fibonacci spiral, the Platonic solids. And it's just like I was, oh yeah, it's all great. It's all great. But you see, you have to wait for people to wake up. You can't do it for them. You can point things out. But I've tried this with some people that you might know and said, that's not actually the natural protocol. And if you tell that to them, certainly in the wrong way, as I have done, they become very defensive. And what makes you think you're right? So you have to back away from that. So with regard to those non-sacred geometries, they're very persuasive, but then they would be, because they're based on those natural geometries, but just with very subtle shifts, very subtle reversals. For example, the Vesica Pisces, which we're told is such a wonderful symbol, is actually a reversed Shona light field sequence. And it can't connect to the central core of energy, where the Triveca light unit does. That's where you have 3 circles, all right? So the Vesica Pisces is a reversed light, a closed loop system, actually, a bit like our economic system is a closed loop debt system. So you can't break out of it. It doesn't regenerate itself. It eventually has to die. And then what happens historically? Well, when the closed loop primordial debt system dies, there's a war or a revolution, and then the whole thing starts again. That is the answer to the closed loop sacred geometry, which isn't sacred. It cannot connect to its center. It cannot regenerate itself. It is a finite system. So here we have the history of the world for the last 30,000 years. We've been living in a finite system, and we've walked into it almost blindfold until now. Now we're waking up. Courtesy of Jane Evershed's videos.
I've done like 2 videos. So what is the importance of this flower of life, to the average person? I mean, how can you take that lace of the flower of life and lay it over your life and say, this matters? Because I want people to make that connection. Like you did just say, it fulfills and it's abundant. And when I think about it, I think I might be able to answer that question myself.
Good.
I think that we've had the mother, who is the nurturing mother archetype herself, to me is the symbol for abundance, always renewing, flooded with breast milk to feed her babies. It goes on and on and on, the metaphors of abundance and growth and fruits and gardens, and it goes on and on and on like that. So I would say that almost it's the same blueprint, where you remove that abundance element and you replace it with lack and scarcity, disease and poverty, in order to control. So even though it's just a flower and it's drawn 2-dimensionally, and you can't really say, I don't know what this means to my life, you can metaphorically take that and paste it over the philosophy of our lives that we accept today as normal. The mother archetype has been definitely exiled from this realm for a very long time. We've lived under a hierarchical, patriarchal system that doesn't have the balance of the nurturing mother. It could possibly be used in that way. Can you see that, Dave, or do you see it differently?
No, I see. I think you're absolutely correct there. It is to do with the alignment of energies. This is what we're really talking about. I know that when I've spoken to some people, they get it, but they why do you keep talking about masculine and feminine, Dave? Right? Okay, well, let's not talk about masculine and feminine. Let's talk about electric and magnetic. All right, if that makes you feel better, let's do that. So what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about the creation of life. So the the God seed stream of consciousness from pure consciousness itself comes down. You remember I told you the 24 God seeds, etc., and they create a time matrix. And this time matrix was created 954 billion years ago, not by accident, but by creative design. So how does it manifest living so long? Well, because it gets energy from itself. It's self-regenerating. It's infinite. And how does that work? Well, because we have eternal life flows passing through. And how do these work? Well, let me show you. A particle, a particle of pure consciousness manifests. It is called a particle. It's antimatter and it's matter. It's omnipolar and it's polar. It's light and it's sound. It's everything, all right? Because it's pure consciousness. And that out of itself creates two more circles. So now you've got one circle and you've got two more circles. That's the Tribeca light unit, we sometimes call it. So what are these other two circles that come out of the original pure consciousness one? Well, they're called particle and they're called particum. And the particum is the magnetic. The particle is the electric. It's electromagnetism. And they come out of the original consciousness. So what do they do then? Well, they separate because electric moves, it's thrust, and the magnetic separates away. Does that stay like that forever? No, because they come back. They lose their quantum and they come back together, aligning as one within the original pure consciousness particle. And they regenerate, they fuse all their energy together and they are regenerated. And then they go out again, and then they come in. And then they go out and then they come in. And this happens superluminally at, trillionths of a rotation in every nanosecond. It's so fast. It's just going fission, fusion, fission, fusion, fission, fusion, like that. And it's regenerating. And that's how you get electromagnetism aligning together to create the universe. It's a design. And so when you look at all of these sacred geometries, the real sacred geometries operate on that infinite system. They're not finite, they're infinite. They regenerate by returning to source, going out, return. It's a bit like breathing. And so we go out and we go in. Now, when we talk about the feminine and the masculine, when we do talk about that, we find that the feminine was first created, was the first circle created by pure consciousness. And it is sound, and it is vibration, and it is magnetism. And the second one comes, the particle circle, the electric circle, comes out of the feminine, out of the magnet, out of the sound. Sound is the glue that holds matter together. So sound comes first, and out of sound comes light. Light is actually sound, but just in a different frequency resonance. So out of the particle pure consciousness comes the sound magnetic feminine. And out of the sound magnetic feminine comes the electric masculine oscillation. All right. Now, in the Bible, they don't tell us that. They say that the feminine comes out of the man's left rib. Well, of course, it's all bullshit, isn't it? Let's be fair. I'm sorry, but let's be honest about that. So what we're looking at is the feminine and the masculine aligning, bringing themselves together to create, receive infinite energy, and then do their thing. The masculine electric goes out in thrust, the feminine pulls back in draw, and that's how creation works together as one.
So the obvious destruction and distortion of creation is helped along very much by deciding that there are no genders, or that there are a million genders, or that you can change your gender, and that you're not essentially of creator's source as a magnetic or as an electric element creating on planet Earth whilst running around.
Sure. if you wanted, if you sat down and wanted to stop creation in its tracks over a period of time, one of the things, well, probably the only thing you'd need to do is to eliminate the sound, vibration, magnetic, feminine connection and just make it all electric. Why don't we just do everything electric? Yeah. Well, that way you can't sustain life because it's finite. All right. You can't recover. So what do you have to do if you're electric and you're, you know, oscillating all the time? You have to find energy from somewhere else. So what can you do? You steal it. You steal it. Yeah. Oh, they got some energy, we'll have that. They got energy, we'll have that. That's what our debt system is. You know, we've got they've got energy, let's go and have theirs. And there's no recovery. There's no natural, infinite source of energy that is being used. That's what's happened in our world, in the 3D world.
I'm hearing little whisperings that perhaps the banking system will obviously collapse because it's not self-sustaining, and perhaps that our new system would be able to adopt the part Kai, part come, part K system. Maybe you could go back to your examination that you took, throw that paper out and write this as the sample example in order to keep the banks flourishing and going in a beautiful manner.
Well, the key the key factor, of course, as we all know now, we didn't know before, and certainly I didn't, but we all know now, is that the corruption happened because the banks control the money supply. It was a deliberate, over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. It was a deliberately planned policy. It wasn't by an accident that they would take hold of the financial control of wealth, gold and silver mines, for example, way back in ancient history. And through that, they would eventually figure out a way in which they can completely control everything, and not just control finance and wealth, but actually create a system of debt whereby they can own the whole world, where the whole world ends up in their pocket. And what's happened, this is what has happened. All right. So with regard to a new financial system, yeah, I guess we've got to have a new financial system. But you know what? We don't really need one if we can do what you've been saying, Jane, and that is become truly, totally, ineffably creative, which is what we used to be. Do you remember 25 million years ago, angelic humans did not need energy to run houses? There were no houses, right? They didn't, there was heat and air to breathe, sunlight to consume, so they didn't have to eat, they didn't have to kill anything to eat, they didn't have to grow anything, etc. They didn't, if they fell over and grazed their knee, there was healing from the ether, and so on. Everything was provided, and they were in touch and in alignment with the whole of the universe. So was there any money? Are you having a laugh? There's no money. There's no need for anything like that. So that is where we're going back to. Eventually, there won't be a need for any money. If I gave you, both of you, if I gave you $700 trillion and said, here you go, spend it wisely, all right? And try not to finish spending it by Friday. You couldn't spend it. It's impossible. What, you're gonna buy 17 yachts, 300 Rolls Royces, 48 mansions. You can only live in one at a time. So then you start to say, well, money doesn't make any sense. Well, money doesn't make any sense except in our 3D world. In the rest of creation, running as it should do, money is irrelevant.
So then that's what I would say to all those people who are waiting and waiting and waiting for, I would say, Nasara Jasara or a currency exchange of some kind. I think in that light of what you've just said, I would say stop waiting and start changing everything with whatever you have, whatever your means that you have. You can do very small and wonderful, beautiful things that can ripple out and have a vast effect on the frequency around you. And that's the biggest thing that we could possibly do right now, is raise the frequency. So I
Yeah.
think, we're trying to get to New Earth. That's a good start too. And then I'd like to say to you, Virginia, an overview again from just sitting there and listening. What would you think would be a good direction to go in right now to sort of start closing down?
I think the question that keeps going through my mind, since we have Dave here, it just ultimately seems like we have to get back to the truth. And when you were talking about the sacred geometry and the differences in the flower of life, I mean, it's like, well, I talk about peeling the onion. It's like we have to get to the core. That's the seed of the truth. And it's like, it feels to me like once that's revealed to, a good amount of people, of like, okay, let's all get on the same page here. And then once we all get on the same page, that's when we really can come together in agreement of like, these are the set of rules. Could be that there's the rules that there are no rules, but I mean, we just got to get to some base of truth that is agreed upon or has been revealed to us, and then we can start rebuilding from there. But right now, it still feels like we are in this process of going down from the layers, coming to where Terrence maybe hasn't been exposed to some of the information that you have. And I guess I've just been anxious over these 4 years to like, when are we going to get to that agreed truth? And is that what it's going to take for us to come together as a group and say, yes, we feel like we need to move in this direction and there's no more lies? When you guys talk about the geometry, that's what I'm thinking about.
Well, yeah, you make total sense there, Virginia. I totally get what you're saying. I think it all comes back to people becoming aware of who they are, truly who are they, and the astonishing celestial powers that they have. It took me ages, and I still haven't quite got there yet. I feel I've got a long way to go, but I feel it's out there. But yes, I hear what you say with regard to the sacred geometry, pointing the way to the truth of who we are. Now that's a difficult one to answer because every single person is on their own pathway into truth, and you can't tell somebody to hurry up, or you can't tell somebody, oh, that's obvious, why didn't you figure that one out before? Because everybody is in their own space and time, and I feel that we have to be there for them if we know, and we have to just present what we know. That's all it is. We present what we know, and when people are ready, they'll pick up on it, or they won't, because it's a free will universe. A lot of our problem here in this universe has been that it's been a free will universe, but not for everybody. We don't have freedom. Some people have freedom, and most of us have not had freedom. So it's not essentially a free will universe, although it should be. And so we should give people space to pick up their own pace in how they develop and expand, etc. But your point is very well taken, because we do have to eventually come to some understanding within our own hearts. What is the truth? And the truth is always to do with who we are. It's our identity.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd like to add to that the waiting part again. If you're not waiting for money or to be rescued, then we're waiting for a solar flash, or we're waiting for a scare event, or we're waiting for something externally. Now, as we go toward the new Earth, do you see some cataclysmic event that just comes along and splices into our existence as we know it, and we pop up somewhere else and we go, oh my God, it's the new Earth? How do you see this happening? And do you think there's going to be this so-called solar flash that regenerates our DNA and suddenly we remember and know everything?
Well, there have been some cataclysmic experiences throughout our history, some absolutely pivotally mind-bending ones, and we've been through them all of us here have. With regard to a solar flash, I'm not an earth scientist, so I wouldn't know. My inclination is to doubt it. There are solar flashes, but if you think that that there's going to be such a mega solar flash that it's going to shift everybody's DNA and immediately transport us into a better future. I don't think that's going to happen, because that's not the way that the universe actually works. The universe works on a strategic divine design, and it operates according to the expansion of consciousness, because everything here is consciousness. Everything is energetic consciousness and consciousness energy. And so what we're really looking for is the expansion of our own divine universe within us, who we are. Now, are there things that can be done to assist? Well, yeah. For example, this particular time matrix experienced some very, very pivotally dangerous situations. And because of that, and quite recently, just sort of like 10, 12 years ago, because of that, a fail-safe mechanism was activated. I won't go into all the details, it would take too long, but a fail-safe mechanism was activated, and that fail-safe mechanism is part of the divine design, whereby if a vast time matrix is wholly threatened into what they call gone fall, in other words, it falls completely in frequency and can't come back, then a fail-safe will be activated, and that has happened. Now, you didn't know about that. There was no solar flash, etc., about it. But what I can say is that that activation of the failsafe, the Nomi code wave, has definitely helped people shift their consciousness. So what's happening? People are slowly, in their own time, expanding their consciousness. Now, you and I, all of us here and on many forums, we know this is true. I know that inside myself, my consciousness has expanded. And it seems to be expanding all the time. And this is helped by the fail-safe code, which was activated in 2016 fully. So yes, there are some cosmic design protocols which do happen to help us, but there's not going to be, I don't believe, a solar flash whereby everybody's DNA shifts and we end up suddenly the next morning waking up on, say, whenever it is, Tuesday morning, and oh my goodness, yes, I don't need to eat anymore, and the sun's always shining. And no, it's not going to be like that. It's going to take a little bit longer.
Well, Dave, you said you didn't want to bore us with the details of the Nomi's failsafe, but to me, I'm just dying to know the details of the failsafe that was put in place, how it was put in place, who put it in place, and the effect that it's supposed to have on humanity as a whole. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how important was it?
It was 12.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was significantly important. Yeah. So because towards the end of 2011 and the start of 2012, Earth was about to move into pole shift and to be pretty much obliterated. We wouldn't have known anything about it. It would have been gone like that, as far as our consciousness is concerned. So it came very, very close. Curiously enough, it came very close because of the Merkaba movement. The Merkaba movement nearly went to 55 rotations per trillionth of a nanosecond, which is very, very electric, massively electric, and
Very
also
male. Very male.
yeah. Yeah, but also, so the magnetic also increased more than it should have done. So our Merkaba, the Earth's and the universe's Merkaba, were significantly damaged, and the pullback was because of that. The failsafe was because of that, and it instituted a new time wave. Universes operate on specific timelines, etc. And they can shift. You can have different futures, of course, so there's millions of different futures. And sometimes you can have inserted timelines, which you think are the real timeline, but actually this is where Tartaria comes from and things like that. There are different timelines, but a time wave is an energetic thrust flow, which carries enormous density of power throughout the whole universe. And we had instituted for us a Hiui time wave, which connects us with the eternal internal heaven worlds. So what happens is, instead of slowly over many, many thousands of years ascending individually up the stairway to heaven, we are going fast track with Earth over the next few hundred years into another universe completely, where we align with Eartha 3. URTHA, which is, you've got the name on your video, Eartha 3, which is a vast other self, Earth of Earth, if you see what I mean. Earth is herself, but she's got a twin Earth called Tara, and another one called Gaia, and another one called Aramatena. And Eartha 3 is even grander than them. And that is in another whole universal cosmea, far in the future. So our time wave now that we're on is going to exit us all together as one, if we have the frequencies, into that new Earth. So it will shift. And what about all those people who don't have the desire to go, or the frequencies? They'll stay here. They'll remain in this time wave, and they won't even notice that we've gone.
Well, if that's already happened, as it could have, then maybe we're the idiots sitting here right now that didn't go get the ride out. Is that possible?
Well, you're sitting here with me, and I quite often used to miss buses. So yeah, I could have missed this bus.
The thing I was wanting to say is, do you think that this is very much related to us reaching the bottom of the Kali Yuga, and now we're at that point where we're ascending up out of the Kali Yuga, that 2012 critical point where the Earth's axis was going to shift and everything was going to be wiped out? Are those concurrent events? Could you align them, do you think? Or they have nothing to do with each other?
I can't really answer that, except I will say that in the cosmic design principle, there are time continuums and time continua and time vectors, and they all have a specific length in Earth years. And a 26,000 precessional equinox size of time continuum, they are known as ayugas, very like Kali Yuga. So, and because the religions all spoke the same language with just slight different shifts. So yeah, there are yugas and ayugas and ayugas and all different spans of time. Time doesn't really exist actually in reality, but down here in the 3D world, time is used as a construct to help consciousness understand itself, because it's based upon a set number of times or sets of time, so that flows of energy can pass through. Every 26,000 years, we have an energetic flow from the heart of the central sun. That's what we're getting now. That's what Jesus came here for 2,000 years ago, to prepare us for. And that's why the fallen angelics knew it was going to happen here, just like the three wise men knew Jesus was going to be born way in advance. The fallen angelics knew that this time, 2002, 2022, was pivotal. It was going to be war. Now, we don't think it's been war, but there has been a war in the heavens over what's been going down. And we've been right in the heart of it. And our energetic contributions have been pivotal too, and more, and they will be required more and more as we expand outwards.
Well, Dave, as we wind down now, I would also like to bring in the crystal spiral, but perhaps if we find that people like this topic of conversation and they want to know more, then we could continue it possibly in the future. But in my understanding, November 23rd last year, 2023, the crystal spiral surpassed the geometry, going back to sacred geometry again. And that also aligned with us emerging out of the Kali Yuga. So it seems to me, as I said in my video, there's these cosmic, huge cosmic alignments happening on our behalf. It's almost as if Source, Prime Creator Source is saying to us, it's time. You've suffered enough. You've been through hell. We're not rescuing you, but if you step up to the plate, we'll take you on another journey, and that would be our ascension. Would you agree with that?
I'm inclined to agree with you. Yeah, I don't know the dynamics of the November the 23rd split at all, but it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. A lot of people whose wisdom and erudition I really admire and respect, they've told me the same as you, and so I'm inclined to believe it. And I think that this separation has happened, as indeed it must surely have done eventually, because the Fibonacci spiral has been involved with us for hundreds of millions of years. So it's about time that it got severed.
So the Fibonacci, to a lot of people, is very sacred and has itself been embedded in nature in its metric sense. How did that happen if all things come from source and it's out of alignment? But many things come from source that are out of alignment. Is that right?
I'd have to say that nothing that comes from the celestial divine program is out of alignment. What happens is that separate aspects of them can be out of alignment with how people or universes exist. That can happen, and that has happened. The Fibonacci spiral is not. Well, you could say that everything is a part of source. Okay, I'll give you that one. So in that case, Fibonacci is an aspect of source, but it's not part of the divine design. It was an artificially created opportunity to suck energy out because energy was no longer available. That's why it attached itself to the crystal spiral and tried to get energy that way. And that was quite successful because it's a very beautiful design. And that design was used along with the 666 configuration to build the Great Pyramid. 50,000 years ago. So, I mean, it's been used, of course, for millions and millions of years because it works. What we're really talking about is, does it work in the infinite universe? No, it doesn't, because otherwise it wouldn't have tried to steal energy. It would have had its own energy permanently available, and it couldn't do that. So that is what a lot of the pre-ancient universal artificial intelligence systems were doing. They were seeking opportunities and ways in which that artificial intelligence could sustain itself forever like source, but it couldn't because it had no center to infinity. And so what it did is it distorted the alignments of cosmic design by stealing energy and attaching. And that is how we got to be where we are in this earth over many thousands of years.
And in a grand sweep, I would like to say that if you look around and hold a light to everything that is rotten and sordid and awful on this planet, could you say it is attributed directly to that?
You're such a difficult lady, aren't you? I mean, asking all these challenging questions.
I'm holding up. You're so great. Light.
I would be inclined to say yes, but where does the Fibonacci and the artificial intelligence actually originally come from? It comes from aspects of source of great creativity and co-creator ability. And they create an opportunity through an idea and through an intent. And it is because of that, over long, long periods of time, that alternative misaligned energies can be formed. So is everything the fault of the Fibonacci spiral? No.
Oh, did I ask it in that simple of a term? Okay, so Virginia, it's having listened to all of this, let's hear your conclusions and what you think, and perhaps if we do this again, where we should go next.
Well, I keep thinking about back to the video. Would you want to conclude back to the video?
Sure.
The subject of the conversation? I guess, Dave, I don't know how many times people ask you this, but where do we go from here? What's going to happen?
What do you want to happen, Virginia, in your life? This is rhetorical. You don't have to tell us, all right?
Okay.
But what do you want to happen in your life? I know what I want to happen in my life, and so Jane knows in her life, and her grandchildren know in their life at this moment what they want. And this is the key to it all. It's when you finally realize what your intent is, where you want to go, how you want to expand your own self, what you want to feel, the joy you want to experience, the love you want to demonstrate, the unity you want to express, all of these things. This is who you are ultimately. So I have to turn it back to you. I'm not going to tell anybody where they should be going. Where do you want to go? That's what I'd say to people.
Mhm. Good answer.
On that beautiful positive note, and Dave, you are just so clever. We just love you. There's lots of people that absolutely love you. They're all over your Facebook page that you just got. So you're out there now waving flags and running around. It's a wonderful thing to see. And I'm honored, really honored to have you on the show. And I'm really happy that I did get to meet you through Sasha Stone, through his Lazarus Initiative. That was a wonderful thing, and I'm really enjoying your friendship. And I would like to say to Virginia, thank you so much for being here and helping out and helping put the video together. And if anybody has any closing thoughts that they're just absolutely dying to say, if I have not exhausted you almost to death, Dave, please go ahead and contribute toward the end of this now.
Well, I want to say that 3 years ago, I quite by accident, I ran into Sasha Stone, and I didn't know who he was. I was just asking him a question, what he thought about something, and I got his email by accident. Except there are no accidents, and but because of that meeting, because he's such a good guy, such a fabulous speaker, such a great networker, he brings people together. I only had two friends back then, and one of them since left. Anyway, because of that, I've met so many wonderful people. Virginia, yourself, I've only just met you, but it's been a great opportunity for me to share with you. And of course, I've met Jane. It's because of that I met Jane, and through Jane and everybody else that I'm meeting now, I'm learning something, and the value of that is expansion of consciousness. So my session here today with you has been wonderful because you have helped me to expand my consciousness, and I want to say thank you.
Virginia?
I think Dave said it all.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being here, and we'd love to hear your comments, and we'd love to know what you would like us to talk about in the future when we do another show. So with that, I'll say goodbye, everybody.